again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good morning, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Tuesday, it means it's Ross Gregory. Good morning, Ross.
Morning, Steve. Morning, everyone.
Good to see you. Morning to everybody in the chat and the moderators. And as always, we're here to look back at the last 7 days at Newcastle United. And if you've got any questions for us, get them in and we'll ask them throughout the show. So, Ross, we wanted 2 wins going into the international break. We got them, and that was a comprehensive performance. I think the chat that we had on the forum last night, I think a lot of people felt it was probably the best performance we've had since the turn of the year. Newcastle playing well, and all being said about not being able to score goals. 2 goals, 4 goals in 2 games. Sorry, it's been there's been an improvement, hasn't there, since that cup final defeat? Yes,
without a shadow of a doubt, there's certainly been an improvement. I think it's only right to say that even though the performances or the results kind of dipped in and around the cup final, and certainly Newcastle haven't been as fluent and as good since the turn of the year as what they were before the World Cup. I think it's still fair to say that in the main, the performances have still been pretty decent. I think across the board. You look at the run of games, the Liverpool game, down to 10 men after 25 minutes or whatever it was, and still created chances. Still, was still a threat. Was still, give Liverpool a real run for their money. Man City was still a very good performance. At times, the cup final against Man United was a decent performance. It's just you in them 3 games you're up against real top quality opposition who are at the top of the league for a reason. The really strong squads, world class players throughout their teams. But Newcastle still competed with them. Still, I think for me, still more than held their own in large chunks of that game. So didn't get the results that they probably wanted. And then the last couple of games, it's just it's been against no disrespect, but a lesser caliber of opponent in Wolves and Forest. That said, Forest, we talked about it on the show last week, Steve, had an excellent home record, a really strong at the City ground, and that was a tough test for Newcastle going there. And I thought the performance was really, really good. You can be hypercritical and say the game could have been out of sight by after half an hour before Forest took the lead. If chances had been taken, a little bit of bad luck, Woodwork hit a couple of times, that sort of thing. In second half, obviously the Elliot Anderson goal is a bone of contention, and we might touch on that later. But there was other chances that were squandered and had to rely almost on a last gasp, an injury time penalty. But the overall performance was really, really good. It dominated against a fired up Forest side, dominated the game, more than deserved the victory. And it, like you say, Steve, it just puts them in a good mood, in a good place going into the international break.
I think the biggest compliment we can pay the midfield, Ross, is that we didn't miss Joe Linton in either of those 2 games. And you've got to give special praise to Joe Willock, who's come in and done a fantastic job alongside Sean Longstaff. The 2 of them have been massive in the last 2 games.
They absolutely have. Joe Willock's been outstanding. He was outstanding against Wolves, I thought, and he was very, very good against Forest again. I put on Twitter. I put a post on Twitter after the game against Forest on Friday night that for me, Joe Linton doesn't get back in that midfield against Man United. In the next game, he doesn't get back in because the midfield looks really, really well balanced with Bruno, Sean Longstaff, and Willock. I asked for people's opinions on Twitter, and I got some people agreeing with me. I got some people disagreeing. There's the usual way, people who will, you know, who thought Sean Longstaff needs a rest or needs to be taken out, and Joe Linton could come in for him. Not for me. I think the balance of that midfield, the energy, the legs in there, you know, the goal scoring threat. Willock was, like I say, was outstanding again. You know, great work for Alexander Isak's first goal, and he was a constant threat. So no, they didn't miss Joe Linton in those two games. And if you think how important he's become to Newcastle's team, the fact that he wasn't missed in those two games was a real bonus for Eddie Howe. He had other players stepping up to the plate. I think Joe Linton will probably still come back in against Man United, by the way. I think he'll potentially come in on that left hand side of the front three in place of ASM. That's another option, and have that Big Joe, Little Joe kind of left hand side attacking link up partnership. But as in terms of the midfield, I thought the balance of it has been really, really good, and I'm delighted to see Joe Will getting back to form.
Yeah, me too. Elliot Anderson as well. I mean, we've got a feel for the lad, haven't we? He came in and rattled the bar, and then scored what I think we've all probably think now was a legitimate goal. He had it chalked off, and there was with similarities to Gaza being told he wasn't going to play in the World Cup final. The kid had tears in his eyes, and then pulled himself together, started getting the team up for it, and it'll come kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, great performance by him, and I think really proved that he's got the faith of Eddie Howe, and rightly so.
He has. It was a really bold move, I thought, by Eddie Howe. Now, he said after the game that ASM had been struggling with a bit of a hamstring tightness during the first half and potentially in training. I still think that was a bold call. I mean, to bring Elliot Anderson into that team for the second half, right on half time. He could have kept it. ASM out there. I'm fairly certain that he could have done. He could have given him another 5 or 10 minutes, but he was bold and brave and said, "Look, Elliot Anderson, you deserve your chance." He's ahead of people like, I know Matt Ritchie's approaching the end of his Newcastle career, but he could have gone for Matt Ritchie on that left hand side if he needed to make a change. There was a couple of options he could have gone with, but it shows the faith and the trust that he has in Elliot Anderson, and the lad repaid him. From the first 30 seconds of that second half, he was at it. He was energetic. He was physical. He was front foot, and he was a real threat in the opposition box as well. Could have had a couple of goals. Obviously, the one that was disallowed was a scandalous decision. I think we all recognise that. But taking away that and taking away his disappointment, I'm sure he'll be very, very pleased and very proud with his performance in that second half, because he was one of the catalysts for Newcastle in terms of dominating that second period. No
doubt about it. And, hopefully we will see him back on the pitch very soon and getting that goal, breaking that duck. I think that's what all the fans would like to see. Lots of comments coming in about the game, so we'll come to them now. Alan Thompson says, Ross, Forest fans say Shelby sits deep on the centre-back's feet. He's slow, he gives needless fouls away, but has a good long Hollywood pass going wrong. Isn't this why map to grid we got rid of him? Shelby, he spent most of the game kicking people, didn't he, Ross? I mean, there was very little Hollywood ball, I thought, on that night. But yeah, I mean, I don't know whether Forest fans are happy with him or not, to be perfectly honest. But I just think he showed why we got rid of him with his performance.
He absolutely did, 100% did. I've never really been a John Joe Shelby fan. I think at times he's got quality in him, but he never does it consistently. He's never been my type of player, if I'm being brutally honest. And I thought he was bang average on Friday night. He probably could have been sent off for at least 2 of the tackles that he put in, and even if they weren't straight red, some of them yellows, and could have, just an accumulation of fouls. His passing range, it was just, typical Shelby. Just in terms of, there was a couple of times he tried the Hollywood Roy the Rover stuff, and it just went out of play, or he just didn't get a foot in the game. He didn't dominate in the game. Newcastle's midfield overran Forest's, and he showed exactly why he's. Eddie Howe said that he likes John Joe Shelby, and there's no doubt at all Eddie Howe didn't want John Joe Shelby to leave in January. Let's be honest about that. If Eddie Howe had his way, he wouldn't have wanted Shelby to leave there. He felt it weakened the squad, and he liked him as a character around the players. But Shelby is miles away from that Newcastle team now. In terms of what Bruno brings, even in terms of the energy and the legs that Longstaff and Willock and Joe Linton bring, the physicality, the ability to press high up and retain possession, control the game in different ways. His passing range is great at times, and sometimes he'll win with great goals and stuff like that. But I thought he was really, really average on Friday night. And if he was wanting to send a message to Eddie Howe at Newcastle about why he should have stayed or remained, he certainly didn't. He didn't succeed in that regard.
No, definitely not. Okay, next question from John Askew says, should Anderson start versus Manchester United?
Good question. Good question. He can't have done any more, really. And I think Eddie Howe will have a couple of selection decisions to make. Obviously, Joe Linton's back, as we've discussed, and for me, is probably still ahead of Elliot Anderson. But Anderson couldn't have done any more. I think all things being well, I think there'll be one place up for grabs against Man United, and that would be that left-hand side role, that left-hand side of the front three, if you like. And it'll either be Elliot Anderson or Joe Linton. I don't see ASM starting that game, even if he is 100% fit. I just think, Anthony Gordon will probably not be quite fit for that as well. So Elliot Anderson couldn't have done any more. He put himself about. He put himself in great positions. He showed why Eddie Howe rates him so highly. So it'll be a tough call for Eddie Howe against Man United, I think. No, it definitely will be. There's no doubt about that. Any injury update on Nick Pope, says Tom? No more than what I've read and what's been said. He's obviously pulled out the England squad with an injury issue which he's been carrying for a couple of games. So I don't know any more than that. If I'm being honest, I don't think it's. I'd be surprised if it was anything serious because of just the nature of he came through the game on Friday fine and looked okay. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. Yeah, I mean, we're led to believe that it's something he's been a niggling injury that he's had for the last few weeks, and he's been playing through the pain barrier. I think that was the story that I'd seen, Tom, and that ultimately, he should be fine. Well, will be fine for the next Newcastle United fixture. I did see somebody in the chat as well asking, will he be travelling to Dubai to spend time with the players? One would imagine that he's not going to want to miss out on that, and whatever he can do to recover with regards to with regards to his injury, be able to do in Dubai probably slightly better than at Newcastle by himself. So yeah, BT, that's who it was who asked the question. Stephen Kennedy asks a question on a lot of people's lips as well, which is any thoughts of the standard of refereeing, Ross? So moving away from VAR, it is up to the man. It is up to the man in the middle, and the standard of refereeing at times has left a lot to be desired, but. Yeah, I mean, thoughts on the referee on Friday and then thoughts of the referee in general at the moment. We could have a full show on this one, Steve. Good, yeah. For me, the standard of refereeing in this country right now is really, really poor. I think for the Premier League, which is the richest, arguably the best league in the world, with the finances behind it, with the caliber of managers, the best managers in the world, the caliber of players, the whole, you know, stature and status of the Premier League, to have the standard of officiating is it's really quite embarrassing, I think, for the Premier League. The levels of refereeing, and not just refereeing. I know, you know, we've talked about VAR plenty, but the referees are still in control of VAR. The way that it's interpreted, the way that they handle it, I think it's really, really poor. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point the Premier League, if they can't get the referees up to a better standard, that they start having to go elsewhere and try to bring referees in from other countries, from wherever it may be, Scandinavia, Europe, further afield. Because for the Premier League to be classed as the best league in the world, it's got to have the best of everything. It's got the best players, it's got the best manager, it's got the best marketing in the best, some of the best grounds. It's got everything else really going for it, other than the standard of officiating. It's every week and it's every other game. We're not just picking a handful of examples out here. It's every game there's an issue, there's an incident. And you know, Friday, I couldn't believe some of the things I was seeing. And by the way, I mean, for both teams, yeah, I don't, you know, there was some tackles that Forest players put in on Newcastle players, which you thought, this is a book, and that's a dangerous tackle. It's then the foul that the Forest lad Dennis eventually got booked for, I thought it was a good tackle. I thought he won the ball. It was just nonsense. And then, you know, second half, the ref made a couple of bad decisions against Newcastle, and then he seemed to want to even it up and gave Forest a couple of decisions. It was just madness. I thought it was a really shocking performance by a referee. And then, you know, the kind of the gleaming turd of it all was the disallowed goal, which you just look back and you think, what on earth were they thinking? What on earth was the VAR official thinking, getting him to go over to the monitor? And then what was he doing? Why isn't he just big enough? Do they not know the rules? Big enough and brave enough to say, actually, no, it's a legitimate goal. There's no flouting of any rules or offside or anything there. It was just an absolute scandalous decision, which fortunately didn't cost Newcastle. On another day, it could have cost them, and it's cost them in the past. But it's not just Newcastle. This is happening to other clubs, to other teams, week in, week out across the Premier League, and something's going to have to change, because it's becoming a bit of an embarrassment for the league, I think.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Mark Edward Brown says, I think it's about time that the Premier League thought about approaching the best referees in the world to ref over here. That also stops most of the arguments about where the refs are from and who they support, which is a good suggestion. Getting back to Nick Pope, BT says, I think the injury is with his fingers. I did notice tape around his fingers when he took off his gloves. John Hackett, good morning, says, morning, lads. Any truth in the McTominay links? Yeah, I mean, that's doing the rounds again, isn't it, Ross? Scott McTominay from Manchester United. I genuinely can't see Newcastle and Manchester United doing a great deal of business, I've got to be perfectly honest. And I don't think McTominay's better than what we've got.
It's an interesting one. It won't go away, and I think there is truth in it. I think there's absolutely something in it. Newcastle like him and have scouted him and have watched him and know what he's about. I don't think there's any doubt in that. You know, I think we'll all have our own opinions on Scott McTominay and whether he's better than what we've got, whether he's a step up or a market step up from Longstaff, Willock, Bruno, etc. Newcastle are light in centre midfield. We all know that, and they need at least one more body in there, possibly two. You know, I think they need somebody who is a bit more defensive minded and who can sit and protect the back four. They also obviously need a little bit more creativity further up in that midfield as well. So I do think there's probably two positions that need strengthening in that centre midfield area. I don't mind Scott McTominay. I think I think he's okay. I think he's decent. I think what he will give, he'll give depth, and he will give experience at the highest level. You know, he's played in Europe. If Newcastle are looking at getting into Europe in the next season or two, hopefully this season, but if not the next season or two, then he's got that experience in there. He will add depth and strength in that midfield. Whether he becomes a guaranteed starter, you know, I don't know, but I don't think it's the worst link in the world. I don't think it's the worst target. I can certainly see why Newcastle are interested in him.
Yeah, John Askew says, have we not already got a better version of McTominay called Sean Longstaff? I would agree. I think Sean Longstaff just needed to find consistency, John. That was the player I was thinking of, and he generally has improved massively. And like I said, the biggest compliment you can pay Sean Longstaff and Joe Willock is that we haven't missed Joe Linton. Everybody was groaning when we knew that suspension was coming. And ultimately, for me, I just generally wouldn't thank you for McTominay. And I struggle to see how we'd get in. And I'd much prefer to chase James Maddison, which, depending on which division Leicester in, might be a lot cheaper than it could have been if we'd pursued him in the last two windows. So it will be interesting to see. I think Newcastle will be aiming higher than Scott McTominay. Gone are the days of Newcastle taking the top six cast-offs, I think. And we've had a lot of them in our time supporting Newcastle United. That is for certain. Sparky D, this is a good point. He says, Jacob Murphy deserves special praise for his last two performances as well. And yeah, I haven't mentioned him, Ross, but Jacob Murphy, Toon fan, has come in and done what a winger should do. Run up and down the line, get to the byline and put decent balls in. And he's again, really done well in the last couple of games. It'll be interesting to see how Eddie Howe manages that situation as well.
Yeah, no, I think he's done fantastically well. I've got a lot of time for Jacob Murphy. I think he's a genuine, honest footballer who has his limitations, like everybody does, but is someone who is willing to put 100% in every game. He won't go hiding. He loves playing for this club, which I don't think can be should be underestimated. How much that matters. He's got a passion for the club. He's a fan. He's been a fan since he was a kid, and he just wants to succeed at this club. Look, is Jacob Murphy the right player to take Newcastle onto that next level? I think we can all probably agree that that's probably not the case. But where Newcastle are now, and it's not always about individuals, it's about players who will fit into a team ethic, who will contribute towards a team, who are willing to sacrifice personal kind of glory and personal platitudes to fit into that team. I think his performances have been really, really good. I thought he was excellent in the brief cameo that he had in the cup final when he came on. I thought he looked a real bright spark. And since then, he's kind of, every time that he's come on, he's not let anybody down. His performances, the chances that he created, he got himself into a couple of good positions himself on Friday night. He does need to maybe just improve on that. If he could get that little bit of end product, start scoring a couple of goals, but like what happened with Miggy Almiron, where he went on a bit of a scoring spree and started converting his chances. Jacob Murphy could do that, then I think that would take his game on to the next level. But I'm a big fan of what he's done over the last few weeks.
Yeah, Mark Edward Brown agrees with me. He says, agreed. Why would we even consider buying a Manchester United reserve these days? Yeah, those days have gone. I would take Maddison and James Ward-Prowse in the summer, says Tom Dixon. Either one of them would do me, Tom. I've got to be perfectly honest. I'd love either one of them at the club. Upgrade on Bruno. Come on, Ross. There may only be one, De Bruyne, and he's too old. Yeah, I see where Ross is coming from, David, but, an upgrade on Bruno is something that Newcastle will be looking to do as time moves on. I think this is the thing. We have to get used to that, don't we?
Absolutely, 100%. All I'm saying about Scott McTominay is that it's about building a squad. It's about building some depth into this squad. And at the minute, Newcastle have probably got 4 centre midfielders. And that's it. 4 for 3 positions. They've got Bruno, they've got McTominay, they've got Longstaff, they've got Willock and Joe Linton. Pretty much 4 for 3 positions. You need depth. You need some strength and depth. What Newcastle like, what Eddie Howe likes, what the players that they've targeted and brought into the club have got Premier League experience. Kieran Trippier, Nick Pope, Matt Targett, Dan Burn, all got Premier League experience. Okay, so all been brought in with Anthony Gordon, all players that have played at this in the Premier League and know what it's about, and they've got the right characters and fit in. So I don't think Newcastle have made many, if any, major errors in terms of the recruitment in the transfer windows in the transfer market since the new ownership came in, since Dan Ashworth and Eddie Howe and everybody else came into the club. So they've identified Scott McTominay as somebody who they think is the right character and who can potentially add something to that squad. I think it's a decent link. I think he's a decent player. I'm not saying he's world class, and I'm not saying he's better than Bruno or he's better than this player or that player, but I think he's somebody who will add something to that Newcastle squad. He will add depth and experience, and you don't get to play for Man United in all the games that he's played for Man United under Mourinho, under Van Gaal, under Ten Hag, under this, that, and yeah, he's not a starter at the minute, but you don't get to play all those games without having something about you. Whether I understand people not wanting to take Man United reserves or what they perceive as Man United reserves, because Newcastle have been stung by that in the past with certain players, taking kind of cast-offs. I do get that, but at the minute I've got real trust and faith in the recruitment and the scouting and that department of the club at the minute. I think they've made a lot of good decisions recently. Scott McTominay is one that they're really keen on. Let's just see what happens over the summer, I suppose.
Yep, definitely. Alan Thompson says, even if Anderson doesn't start against Manchester United, it's great to have options, especially when Gordon and Almiron come back. And again, yeah, Almiron, I mean, a long-term injury for him, because, we're running out of games. But, 5 or 6 weeks we were told he could be out. We don't know whether that's true or not. We haven't really had, any serious confirmation from the club on that. But obviously they will be assessing the situation and seeing how things are going. John Askew says, is the negativity surrounding Wilson a bit over the top? He's been off the boil for a few weeks, but surely it's too early to write him off. With Isak, there could be a quality combo there if Eddie goes for it. I mean, I can't ever see him playing two up top, especially this season when, ultimately Newcastle United have done so well with this particular formation, and the players seem to know it and enjoy it, I guess, and play well in it. So, I haven't seen a great deal of negativity around Wilson, but I have seen a lot of people, including Tom Dixon this morning. Do you think we'll go for a striker this summer? There's already that thought of, replacing Wilson, but that's the case with most of the team. We're going to have to replace players who are going. Some players' contracts are up. Other players are, past the sell-by date. We will be replacing players, but has there been any over-the-top criticism of Wilson? He's just going through a bad run, Ross, isn't he?
He is going through a bit of a bad spell. There's clearly some issues there around his fitness. He didn't. He had obviously fitness issues during the week, and one of the reasons why Eddie Howe ultimately decided not to call him off the bench on Friday night, even though Newcastle were chasing a goal in the last 20-25 minutes. He's not 100% right, but he's going through a bit of a spell, but. I think he's still got a lot to offer Newcastle. I think he's still a valuable player for the squad, for Eddie Howe, for the way Newcastle want to play. Could Tim and Isak play together? I agree with you, Steve. I don't think it'll be as a two, unless under extreme circumstances where they might be going for broke in the last 15 minutes or so. I thought it was interesting that Eddie Howe moved Alexander Isak over to the left-hand side for the last 5-10 minutes of the first half on Friday night, and switched ASM through the middle. And Isak was almost playing as a left forward, which I think a lot of people have thought that might suit him as well. He ended up getting his first goal from that left-hand side. Don't think it's his preferred position or his best position. I think he prefers to work from the outside, from the inside to out, and start centrally and move into those wide positions. But he can play as maybe a wide forward as well, with potentially with Callum Wilson through the middle. I think hopefully, a couple of weeks off now, a break, go to Dubai, do a bit of training, no games. He's obviously not in the England squad as well. Callum Wilson hopefully gives him a chance to get his niggles and get his fitness sorted, and he can come back and have a real strong end to the season with Newcastle.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Think they are going to have a behind closed doors fixture, so maybe that's a chance for him to get a little bit of a run out and maybe get that monkey off his back and get that goal that he needs to to get his confidence back up and move forward. That's what we want. Okay, halfway through the show, time for the ads. Big thanks to all our sponsors. Thanks to Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria, and you can find them at mrvickys.co.uk. Email info@mrvickys.co.uk and place an order by phoning 01768 210 102. Thanks to Free Vita Getaways. Book your holidays or short breaks in the UK or around the world with them. Let them find your happy place. ABTA and ATOL registered. You can contact them by emailing fruivitagetaways@gmail.com, call or text 0792 842 7895, and join their Facebook group at Fruit Vita Getaways. Thanks to Media Arts for all the technical help and videos that they do. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. If you want to join the channel, click join, and you can see the various rates that you can pay to help support us. If you want to join by subscribing, hit the subscribe button. That is free. Hit the thumb up under the video to help the algorithm, and click share to other social media platforms. If you do subscribe, we do give you a free car sticker. Just email John at nufcmatters.com and he will post you one out. If you want to join the cult, which is a one-off payment of £25, where you get a scarf, a pen, a cup, and entry into the monthly draw, then go to nufcmatters.com and look for the cult membership, or put your phone over this smart code and it will take you straight there. We are available as well as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. And we do support the food bank on this channel. So if you want to make a virtual donation from anywhere in the world, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and put your money into the match day bucket. We've got some events coming up. First off in April, April the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 11th. Peter Beardsley Soccer School is back for ages 6 to 16 years. Go to peterbeardsley.soccerschool.com for more information. An evening with John Anderson at the Time House Surf Cafe, Tuesday the 18th of April. Book your tickets direct from the venue. An evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson 2 nights later, Thursday the 20th of April at the Irish Centre. Tickets from nufcmatters.com. An evening with Nobby Solano at Laurels in Whitley Bay is May the 11th. So contact the venue direct if you want to go to that event. And we've got our NUFC Matters end of season party, which is the 27th of May at 7 o'clock. Tickets are a tenner from nufcmatters.com. An evening with Rob Lee at Louis Liquor Store, 1st of June, and tickets direct from the venue. And an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford, Friday the 2nd of June at the Grand Hotel Gosforth, which is in aid of the Healing Tour charity. And you can get your tickets direct from them at the healingtour.org.uk website. Just click events. A little bit later in the year, an evening with Gavin Peacock, July the 10th. Tickets from nufcmatters.com for that one. And if you like your boxing, a night of champions featuring Frank Bruno, Ricky Hatton, Nigel Benn and Joe Calzaghe. Tickets for that one from goldstarpromotions.com. BT asked earlier, has Fabian Schär's been playing well in the team? Is there any truth that he'll leave in the summer, Ross?
I've not heard anything on that one. No, that would be news to me. I think he's been excellent this season. Been probably one of the if you were picking your player of the season at this point, I think he'd certainly be in the mix. He'd been your top 3 or 4. I've not heard about him leaving in the summer. He's obviously he's wrong side of 30 now, and I think Newcastle will look to sign at least one centre half in the summer, and put a bit of pressure on Schär and Botman, and again add a little bit of depth to it. But I've not heard about him potentially leaving in the summer now.
Real Madrid would not be willing to pay €40 million up front for Gabri Vega. Is there any truth that Newcastle would be interested?
Been linked with him. Talented young Spanish player, in you know, who's made a real impact and breakthrough in La Liga this season. Attacking midfielder, fits the kind of the profile, I suppose, that Newcastle will be looking for. They will be looking for, like we said, some midfield reinforcements in an attacking sense, whether that's a James Maddison or whoever it may be. Alex Scott at Bristol City is another one that they rate highly. I know they have been linked with Vega, but again, I don't know any more than that.
Yeah, Tom Dixon, I've got to be honest, mate. This story that the Chronicle ran about Calvin Phillips and Bruno swap deal, you know, the first place I saw that was Big Frank Chipper on social media. Hardly the man who's in the know about transfers. Ross, I mean, that's ludicrous. I've got to be honest. I did groan when I saw the Chronicle run that one.
I don't think it's. I mean, I've read the piece that the Chronicle have that was done in the Chronicle. It's one that they've been linked with. You know, there's. I think what you have to be aware of, and I've said this all the time with transfers, is that there's so much speculation, there's so much rumor and counter rumor. Players of Bruno's quality are going to get linked with other clubs. They're going to get linked with other clubs. Newcastle, in the next year or two, I can almost guarantee within the next 12 to 18 months, Newcastle will receive a huge offer for Bruno Guimaraes. I think they'll receive a massive offer from somebody if he continues the form and the way that he's playing.
Yeah.
The best clubs in the world, whether it's Madrid or Barcelona or PSG or Man City or whoever it is, will be interested in them, be watching them and monitoring them, because they will be thinking, if Newcastle can't deliver what Bruno wants in terms of trophies and in terms of European football, which we hope that they will be able to, but if they can't match his ambition on the pitch by winning silverware, then they'll look to come in from. So every club in every top club in Europe will be keeping an eye on Bruno because of his ability, because of the way that he's been playing, and because he's one of the best in his position in the Premier League, in my opinion. So Man City will be interested, I'm sure. Newcastle have had an interest in Calvin Phillips previously, but I don't think Newcastle would ever entertain at this point in time swapping Bruno for any other player.
Yeah, me neither, mate. And we're building, and you've got to remember as well, the Saudis don't like second best. This is the big thing, I think, is our owners. They won't settle for that. And I think, if Bruno was causing a problem behind the scenes, if Bruno was a negative influence in that dressing room, I think that there would be truth in that particular story, that particular move. But at this moment in time, Bruno's happy with us, we're happy with him, and I think that's it. And I think until the time comes that Newcastle are looking to look for the next best thing, Bruno will be here. But again, they're all assets. Newcastle United's players are assets. They're all sellable assets, and if they can, like we saw back in the days of Keegan, if the manager and the team around him feel that they can get rid of one and bring in another, for example, putting Andy Cole out and eventually bringing in Celez, and then going for Alan Shearer, that's the way that it'll work. And I don't think people need to start worrying about players leaving and not being replaced. We're not a selling club anymore. We're a buying club, limited by financial fair play. But generally, Newcastle fans have got a lot to get excited about, a lot to be excited about. And David, you're right. Bruno is a big part of that beating heart of the dressing room. But we do know he's ambitious. Should Newcastle go the next couple of seasons without winning anything, I think Ross is right. There could be bids in the summer. We don't know. But I genuinely feel that for now, Bruno's happy, loves the fans, loves the club. And, I think he'd want to continue in the same vein. But, let's see. John Hackett says, whoever we sign needs to be a first-team player. The players they replace will become strong squad players. I trust Eddie and his team, whoever we go for. They will have been scouted well. Are the six apparent six positions we want to improve in the Telegraph right, Ross? I haven't seen the article. I presume that's something to do with maybe it's Luke Edwards. Maybe, I don't know. But have you seen that? I haven't seen it.
There's a couple of pieces that have been knocking around about positions that Newcastle want to strengthen, and this is kind of an ideal kind of hit list. So the Athletic ran a piece. George Corkin did a piece in the Athletic, and I've not seen if Luke's done a piece in the Telegraph at all, or not. But there is I think there is 6 or so positions that Newcastle, in an ideal world in the summer, will want to strengthen in terms of taking Newcastle onto the next level in terms of strengthening the squad. And those positions are, they're looking for a right-sided centre half to challenge Fabian Schär. Obviously Jamal Lascelles has done really well in the couple of games that he's come in, but I think they want somebody who's a bit more comfortable on the ball, a bit more of a ball-playing centre half to challenge Fabian Schär, who's 31 now. We just talked about he's wrong side of 30 now. They're looking for players of a younger kind of mix, like a Sven Botman who's got that left-sided position fairly secure. So they're wanting that right-sided centre half. Left back, they're still looking at a left back, and I know Newcastle have got numerous options at left back. And on Friday night, on the bench had 5 players who played left back for the team in Matt Targett, Paul Dummett, Jamal Lewis, Matt Ritchie, and Javier Manquillo, who all on the bench on Friday night, and all had played at some point at left back for Newcastle, and that was with Dan Burn as well in the starting 11. But they want a more orthodox left back. I don't think Matt Targett has nailed that position down. Obviously, Dan Burn has done really well there, but again, they're looking at a left back, and players like Kieran Tierney's been linked in 1 or 2 others. 2 midfielders we've talked about, a kind of number 6, if you like, and someone who will protect that back 4, and then somebody who can play a bit further up, a James Maddison type or that kind of attacking midfielder, and then potentially 2 forwards as well, wide forwards or a central striker as well. So they're kind of the 6 positions that have been mentioned. I think that's in an ideal world. I don't think they'll probably get all six players nailed down in the summer, but it's in terms of what we've talked about in terms of adding that depth, adding that strength. If Newcastle are going to be playing in Europe and still trying to challenge in the Premier League, I think we all know that they need more quality, more strength and depth. Whether they can get all that in this summer or not, or it might take a couple of transfer windows, but that's certainly the aim, and those are the key positions that they're looking at.
Ross, a lot of pundits have said that we don't have the experience for a run-in, but a lot of our players are experienced pros, and I don't think the pressure will faze them. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a really interesting point. I think it's not necessarily about the experience. It's about the depth, the strength and depth when injuries and everything else starts to bite, and whether the team's still got that, will still have that quality to when the pressure's on, when the games are tight, when they need to mix things up, or when injuries are starting to bite, then whether they've got that depth and strength for the final push to the season. Spurs are obviously going through a little bit of turmoil at the minute, and Antonio Conte will more than likely lose his job by the end of this week, possibly by the end of this show. And Liverpool are so inconsistent, but they do have real quality in their ranks. You look at Liverpool's options up front, the front kind of 5. When they do click, it's frightening. And Spurs have got your Harry Kanes and whatever who can just pull games out of tight games out of the hat and win them with a moment of just quality in the 18-yard box. Newcastle are down on numbers. You saw on against Forest on Friday, the bench wasn't the strongest. Elliot Hansen did fantastic when he came on, but there wasn't much else other than maybe Callum Wilson, who clearly wasn't fit. With Miggy Almiron out for a period of time, with Anthony Gordon, we're not sure what will happen there. With 1 or 2 others who are carrying knocks and niggles, I think it'll be less about the experience in the squad, but more about the depth when injuries start to come and the games come thick and fast towards the end of the season.
Yeah, injuries do play their part. Suspensions play their part. Manchester United, as we know, when they come to Newcastle in our next game, going to be without Casemiro. Talk of Rashford potentially being out for a while as well. He's been sent home from the England squad. Might just be precautionary, but it hits all teams. And again, it's how you can adapt, how you can play. And we've seen that when Newcastle. I've already mentioned it on the show there about the fact that Sean Longstaff, Joe Willock, Murphy, and Anderson in the second half, have made it faultless that we're missing the likes of Almiron, Gordon, and Joe Linton. It was a really good performance, and I'm happy. If Isak and Bruno stay fit, we get first position, says Ian. Bold prediction, mate. Bold prediction. Tom Dixon wants you to look at the other end of the table. He says, Ross, there's not many games left. Who do you think will get relegated? I've got to be honest, Ross, this is fascinating, this whole relegation battle, because for Newcastle United not to be in it, first of all, is brilliant. We're all delighted that we're not involved in it. But if you look at the bottom of the table, Southampton 23 points, Bournemouth 24 points, West Ham 24 points. That's your bottom three. But then you go up to 12th, where Crystal Palace are, who of course have just parted ways with their manager. And potentially bringing in Roy Hodgson again. 27 points there on. There's only, it's 3 points difference between, 12th place and, the bottom three. It's incredibly tight, Ross.
It is. Roy Hodgson's been appointed this morning as well, Steve. So he's in at Palace until
there we go then.
Yeah, he's in at Palace until the end of the season now. So I think it's ridiculously tight, isn't it? You've got 3 points, effectively 4 points separating the bottom 9 clubs. Unbelievably tight. Palace are on a shocking run, hence obviously why Vieira lost his job. Haven't won this year yet, and if somehow still managed to cling on to 12th position, but I think it's almost too tight to call. One win for somebody, and all of a sudden they're out of the drop zone, or the picking up points. Southampton, you wouldn't have had Southampton coming back from 3-1 down to get a point against Spurs. You wouldn't have necessarily had Everton coming back at Stamford Bridge to get a point against Chelsea. Just when you think Leeds are going to get dragged right into it, they produce a great win against Wolves. Just when Everton have had a couple of really good results, but they're still in there. Forest looked like they pulled themselves out of there, and then now they're only a couple of points adrift. Leicester seem to be in free fall. It's a real tough one to call. But seeing as I've been asked, I will give it. I'll not sit on the fence, and I'll say if I had to pick three now, I would say Southampton, Bournemouth, and probably I'm going to go Leeds. Southampton, Bournemouth, and Leeds for me.
Okay, I've just stuck a link in the chat as well. I haven't mentioned this, since it went up there, but I am doing the Great North Run again. Doing it with Vince, actually, one of our mods, and we did it last year. So I'm doing it for the Teenage Cancer Trust, as is Vince. So I've stuck the link in. If anybody wants to sponsor me, then the link is there. Still plenty of time, of course, but it's nice to get that money in early. I've got to hit 345 quid for the Teenage Cancer Trust this year. I'm at £200 already, though, so I've got a good start. So click the link in the chat if you can help. BT says, do you believe that 8 more wins should get us into the Champions League? 9 would make sure. Stu Penman did a wonderful analysis of this on the show at the weekend, The Professionals. Just more or less, anticipating that Newcastle will get on average 2 points a game before now in the end of the season. And, it means really that Spurs have to go on a monumental run to overtake Newcastle, especially with Newcastle having 2 games in hand. I still think the biggest threat to Newcastle's, getting into the Champions League is Liverpool. I think Liverpool will make some kind of late run. The quality they've got, I'll be very surprised if they don't. The problem with Liverpool, of course, like Spurs, is they're prone to losing a really weird game. They go and beat Manchester United 7-0 and then travel to Bournemouth the following week and lose 1-0. So, ultimately it's you just never know. That's the beauty of football, and it's the beauty at the top end of the table rather than the bottom end, being involved in it. But yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts, mate?
So Newcastle on 47 points at the minute? Am I right?
Yeah,
47 points at the minute. I think I wouldn't be surprised. I think 70 will probably do it. it'll probably get you top 4. 70 points will do it. Maybe even less this season.
So averaging 2 points a game, Stu worked it out that Newcastle would finish on 71 points.
Yeah, I think that'll absolutely do it. Absolutely do it. So what? There's 12 games. What we got? How many games left? 12 games left.
Yeah.
12 games left. I think if Newcastle pick up 22, 23 points from those 12 games, they will finish in the top 4. That's what that is. 8. Let's say 8 wins gives you 24 points. I think probably 7 wins will probably be enough. Maybe 6 in a couple of draws, 6 in a few draws. So I do think 70 points will be enough. It may even be less. It may even be, say, 67, 68, 69. But it's going to be really tight. I think Liverpool are quite capable of just hitting a run of form and going bang, bang, bang and winning the majority of their games between now and the end of the season. They have got real quality in their ranks, and they have got a big squad when everybody's fit. I do think they can go and just push on. Spurs are, as we've said, in a bit of turmoil. It'll be interesting to see what happens after this international break and in the manager situation, and whether that spurs them on, no pun intended, or actually kind of knocks them a little bit. Man United aren't actually out of it, and Newcastle beat Man United in the next game. It leapfrog them, so it is going to be really, really tight. But I do think probably, if I was a betting man, I would say 68, 69 points will probably be enough.
Yeah, somebody made the point last night as well, that, no matter what European competition we end up in, we're going to be playing midweek games. So we might as well be in the Champions League as not be in it.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. Either way, if you finish I think European positions, if we finish in the top 7, then you're guaranteed a European spot. You're going to be playing, like you say, midweek games, week in, week out. So for me, and I've been asked this before, get in the Champions League, go for the Champions League. It's better than playing in the Europa League. And yeah, Newcastle aren't ready for the Champions League. Of course not. Of course, the squad isn't strong enough and isn't robust enough. It's probably not robust enough at the minute to play in Europe in either competition, because of the volume of extra games and the strength and depth. But if you get in that Champions League, the riches, the money, the finance that comes with it, the profile, the ability to attract a better caliber of players, because you're in the top competition. If you're looking at, we've talked about Bruno there, if you're looking at retaining Bruno and somebody's coming in from and you can offer him Champions League football next season, absolutely. It's another plus point. It's another reason that players will want to stay or come to Tyneside. So I'd love to get in the Champions League, in the Champions League spots. Much better to finish in the Champions League than be punted into the Europa Conference, or the Europa League, which admittedly Newcastle would probably fare better in and have a better chance of progressing further in, but it doesn't have the same appeal that the Champions League does.
Steve, Liverpool play City, then Liverpool, then they play Chelsea both away, then Arsenal at home. Are you sure they are our main threat? Let's say Brighton. Brighton always fall away. Look at what they did in that promotion season. I don't think Brighton are the main threat. I think Liverpool still are the main threat. They do well in the big games, and that's where ultimately it comes down to the games against the teams around you. They're the games you've got to win. I still think they'll be all right. P. Davison says, relegation nailed on last year and trying to work out what we need for a Champions League finish this year. Who'd have thunk? Yeah, you're right, mate. And soon the days, says David John Cook, where we hope for opponents to lose players will be gone, because we will have the squad to win full strength against full strength teams. Ian Toon Trader says Liverpool are all over the place for me, and they've got some really hard games coming up. Alan Thompson says, Stephen Ross, if you could pick one player now, which player would it be? Me, I like the player from Fulham, Polina. Sorry if it's not spelt right. I still want Maddison, mate. I still think that Maddison would be an improvement on the squad, and I think Maddison is the key for me. What about you, Ross? One player.
Oh, one player.
Harry Kane up front as well, by the way. Yeah, I've never changed those two players. I think Kane, seeing his career out at Newcastle and beating Shearer's record here rather than at Tottenham, would be fantastic.
Yeah, I can see. I think to choose one player would be very, very, very difficult. Maddison would definitely add something different to that midfield. But if I had to choose a position, I'll go for a position more than a player. I would say that's that central striker, that goal scorer, that's somebody who's going to get you 25 goals a season, whether it's a Kane or Haaland. I'm not obviously saying that Newcastle will be able to sign those types of players, but somebody of real class and quality through that middle who will finish chances with more consistency and regularity than what the current forwards do. Because I think we create plenty of opportunities still, and Maddison would probably create more. But the creation of the opportunities isn't always the issue. It's finishing them off and being ruthless in that 18-yard box. Hopefully Alexander Isak can continue his great form and be that forward, but I'd like to see somebody else up there as well.
Gaz says, do you think we can catch Man United? They're playing 9 games next month. Yeah, I think we can. And again, it comes down to a lot of the games that are played between these other teams as well, Ross, doesn't it?
It does. There's going to be, there's still a third of the season pretty much left, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's a third of the season. I think you kind of get to this point in end of March, start of April, and you think you're banging the run in, but because of the World Cup and then games, the season going on deeper, then I think we forget that there's still a lot of games still to be played. Everybody's pretty much got to play each other. There's going to be lots of twists and turns. Newcastle's next 6 fixtures, to be fair, aren't particularly easy on paper. There's hard games in terms of the next 6. Man United, West Ham scrapping for their lives. Who else is there? I think Villa have showed real improvement. Then the Spurs as well, isn't there? I think then Brentford or someone thrown into the mix then as well, who are obviously doing really well as well. I think Newcastle's next 6 games are crucial. If it can come through the next 6 games and still be in and around that top 4, top 5, then it sets it up really nicely for the final push.
Yeah, it definitely does. Let's think what the players want. Champions League or Europa League? We know the answer. If they want it badly enough, they'll get top 4. Some of our players will never get another chance. Really good point, that Geordie Toomberlife. I'd never say never, but while we are building, we've been handed a great opportunity, says David John Cook. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Been absolutely brilliant this morning. You've given us some great questions and some great things to debate. And we'll need the same next week from you guys, because obviously no game this weekend. Of course, we'll be able to talk about England. Ross, anything you need to promote? Anything you want to push? And how's Wickham doing?
Yeah, we're doing okay. We had a good win on Saturday. Played 70 minutes with 10 men and won 4-1. So that was decent. Got Bishop Auckland tonight. A nice trip up to Bishop Auckland on a Tuesday night. They're flying their top down, second top, so they're going for promotion. So look forward to that one. And yeah, I'll save the links and the work stuff for next week. We'll have a couple of little bits and bobs. I think we're going to be doing a Player of the Month poll for Newcastle on the Chronicle, which will be interesting if people want to keep an eye out for that and vote for that Player of the Month for March. Few nominations in there, and be interesting to see who comes out on top of that one, because there's been some good performances.
Have Wickham signed McTominay yet, says Geordie Toomberlife?
Not yet. I'm still in negotiations. I've offered 3 bags of peanuts instead of the usual 2.
And he doesn't have to sell a domino card.
Doesn't have to sell. He can go in the Lang jackpot. He can go in the Lang jackpot five a month and get a chance to win his 200 quid. I'll give him that. But no,
Wickham at home at the weekend. Ian Toon Trader lives in Wickham. He says I might pop down.
No, unfortunately, we are at Carlisle. He's more than welcome to come through to Carlisle, a bit of a check, but we've only got 3 home games left. Whitley Bay on a Tuesday, Ashington on a Tuesday, and then Seaham Red Star on a Friday night, which should be some good crowds for those ones. So get yourself down, Ian, and I'll buy you a coffee as well, yeah.
There you go. BT says, is there any reason why Bruno's on holiday in the Maldives and Big Joe in Brazil instead of travelling to Dubai? They've been given a bit of time off. A few of the players have to go and see family and friends and whatever they want to do, but they're all going to liaise in Dubai. That's what I've been told anyway. There is going to be a bit of team bonding going on as well, but certain players are on the injury table. Certain players have been given allowances to go off, so it's as simple as that. Nothing sinister. Nothing strange, but just a good way of managing your squad, I would say. Okay, Ross, as always, thanks, mate, for coming on. Look forward to seeing you next week, mate. Take care.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone.